Welcome, everybody. Today we are joined by the infamous former Cypriot Emperor, Lettuce. We are going to be interviewing him today. Lettuce is here. Lettuce, why don't you, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. What do you, how you feeling on this good Wednesday morning, hump day?
Well, I woke up pretty early, had some personal stuff to attend to. I hope everybody in chat is doing all right today as well.
You are as well. Tell us a little bit about the events that have inspired last few. Take it right from the top. Obviously, you've probably seen our interview with posted yesterday, um, and he went in detail about his side of why he could justify um, attack on Cyprus and upending him. But I want to hear your side. So, where do you want to go?
All right, well, I could walk it back all the way from when I became emperor first, but that we can probably save that for a little later. With the uh, with the Saddam conflict, I would want to start with before all of this happened, before Seljuks got under Saddam's rule. Back when Saddam was one of my division leaders. He had come from the Abbasids when the Abbasids was going through a rough period. Him and the Pendragon family. Um, Both of them had their homes. I gave them in Cyprus. Saddam ran Paphos, which is our shielding division, and Dylan and the other Pendragons had Kyrenia, our heavy weapons. Um, and Saddam, when he was helping, Cyprus, when he was working with me, he was doing great. He was doing phenomenal work with his division. I was singing his praise every day I could because he really did do really good work when he was with me. Um, then he told me that he was retiring and he was going back to Abbasids to be with his old friends. And if you're retired, yeah, I understand that. That's fair. Go be with your people because I understand that Cyprus wasn't his home faction. So then it comes to my attention that he's not retiring. He just said that. I think he, in his own words, said he did that to make me not sad that he was leaving. But in him leaving to the Abbasids, he took all his people. He took, I think, anybody that was in the Paphos server. We might have had like one Cypriot that he tried to tell them to join, but I can't confirm that. So that was a while ago. I don't remember exact dates, but um, we worked together pretty well. We did pretty good. But then he went over there, and then I don't know what happened with him much after that. I think me and him, because he was in the Abbasids at that time, if I remember correctly, we didn't end up fighting. Faction v faction, not like a personal thing, just faction v faction stuff. Um, After that, he kind of dropped off for the radar for me. He joined Seljuks under Fops at some point, had his division. He was doing great work there. Then he took over there. And now I will say he did reach out to me trying to set up some way where we could still be allied. But if you ask me, there's no way that our factions both could have allied. He was very much anti-Fed and against everybody that I was friends with, and I was very much against everybody he was friends with. Our interests were completely opposite. If we attempted to make some alliance pact, it probably would have just caused more problems and would have been a bunch of work for a bunch of nothing, if you ask me. So I didn't reply to his alliance request. And then the first conflict we had, I'm trying to think back to it. Um, might get some. There's a lot of twisting parts around it, so I'll try in my best to remember it. But I think I don't remember what started it, but I remember Cyprus was um, taking some garrisons via clan capping there up in northern. Um, I was mostly pushed into the hole. We have to fight the Seljuks from my old 2IC Blun. He uh, he was telling me that Saddam is just not a good person to have in Seljuks, and that won't work. I trusted him. Blun had been my 2IC for a long time. He'd helped me a lot. He'd always, kept me on track when I had to, when I felt like I was exhausted, when sometimes I felt like I had to retire from a lot of things happening. He was helping me keep me on the straight and narrow. And me being, I guess, yeah, a new gen leader, that helped me a lot. So I trusted his word. And given how Saddam had been backing the people who I considered my enemy, I mean, it made sense. So then we had our fight there. We had the Abbasids help us with that, and that surprise declaration of war from them. Um, got pushed back. Abbasids also got pushed back. We agreed to peace terms of. Um, I know in there was a document we had signed where I got information from FOPS that it was bad information from FOPS that apparently Saddam did not want peace, or like he didn't want to come to an agreement. And so then the fighting continued from that. But that first initial conflict was pretty messy. I got bad information that made me make some poor decisions. Um, so then he after that we started. Well,
Speak a little bit about what were those poor decisions? Like what tell me what was that?
if I remember correctly, it was I know it was some just attack. I believe we just kept attacking them, clan capping our way because we were. I cannot remember the situation perfectly clear, but yeah, just basically the conflict continued. Um, because I was getting info from both Tarask, who was talking to Saddam on my behalf, and then I was getting the bad info from Fops, who was talking to me. So it was just a communication problem there between
Did you
those
ever
two.
consider just reaching out directly to Saddam to figure it out and avoid further issues?
Well, no, because like I said, I had basically we're at war now. We're fighting. So, and I was still with my 2IC Blun, who was very much Saddam bad, no Saddam. So we were doing that. We were fighting, and after that, we had signed a treaty, and one of the clauses that the Seljuks put in was that I could not support the KQ which was Fops and his people, or any rebellion. And now I did not. From that point on, once that peace agreement was signed, I did not coordinate, help, or plan anything with any KQ to overthrow Saddam at all. The evidence of why I actually did, and so they broke the treaty, was there was the Seljuk government in exile Discord server. I had joined that because Fops told me to a while before this war happened. After they were kicked out, I said one message there on the day I joined. It was all capitals, my lions. And then I didn't say anything else in that server ever again. That was the war clause for why they had to fight me the next time.
So you think Saddam interpreted that as you trying to stage a coup to remove him from the outside by supporting
Yes.
ex-Seljuk government members.
Yeah. I had sent one message in that server, and that was it. I didn't talk anywhere else. I didn't talk openly. I didn't even talk in Cyprus about anything about that. I had told everybody, we're done. All right, we're leaving the Seljuks alone. I didn't want to mess with them. I just wanted to let them do their thing. They want to switch stuff up, fine. We didn't have an ally at the time anymore because they were our official ally, but now that's switched. So now, after that, they're doing their thing. I'm doing my thing. Marcus comes into the picture. He reached out to Baylor originally because he wanted to bring his group to KOJ, but they didn't have a spot. I had an open division, Sovereign Order of the Sword. Ragnus made it. We never really got to using it. So I give it to him. He's there about, I don't know exact times, but a bit after he takes leadership of Sovereign Order. He messages me that his people were like ex-Seljuk, some of them, and they don't like Saddam, and that he wanted Saddam out of power. At that time, when he first said that, I thought he just didn't like Saddam. All right, great. Then he made a server called I can't remember because I didn't join it. Some People's Liberation thing, and started sending it around one of our HR group chats. And then obviously there's something happening. So I tell him to cut the shit. No more. You're not doing this. You're not doing any rebellion. That's really not just not a good move. We're in a bind right now. We have internal issues we have to focus on. So we're not messing with any foreign faction. I've always been against the foreign faction messing with their thing. If like for example, if the Ayyubids don't like Bilitis and they themselves, without a foreign faction messing with them, decide we're going to independently do a rebellion, that's fine and just. It's the Ayyubids deciding what the Ayyubids want. Another faction does not have any right to choose or dictate the leadership of another faction. That is a bar that nobody should ever cross, in my opinion.
So
Um,
this is sort of the that's sort of been the prelude. What happened as far as the puppeting? What yeah, walk me through first of all losing your territory, losing Nicosia, and the puppeting process, and just walk me through that for you.
well, when we were fighting back to get our capital back, that was originally it was a 1v1 with us and just Seljuks fighting. I had a call with Saddam once he declared, and to his credit there, he said that he did it right. He did it respectfully and fairly a 1v1, which was true, yes. That first battle on Anacrene was after his surprise attack and taking of Nicosia. It was a fair 1v1 for that first battle after there. Then after that, um, the I think it was, yeah, first it was I think an Ayyubid showed up and was fighting us. So then the King of England showed up for the funnies because there was one Ayyubid, so he showed up and he decided to fight. Then the next region battle, I believe, is when the assassins got involved heavily. I believe it was 4 or 5 of them had joined. They weren't allied in game yet, but they joined. Um, After they joined, so now, uh, then from the assassins joining, the next battle after that, the assassins, if I remember correctly, were fully allied, and there was an Ayyubid div leader and 4 other Ayyubids also there. At that point, we called in KOJ and Templars. Now, due to how the game works, we were at our cultural spawn. We were on the one side of Anacrene, our stronghold, and our allies spawned on the opposite side, about 1,000 feet away from us. So they were at the Nicosia travel gate. We were about 400 feet away from the flag. So then we were cut off. They would be in the middle and killing us and killing our allies overstuck at the travel gate. So even though we had those 2 allies, there was no way for us to push out and actually take the stronghold. Um, so then we got vassalized. I assumed whatever they're gonna tributary us or something. I go to sleep. Um, this that was the final battle when like everybody was pretty much there. Like it was almost every anti-Fed faction was just kind of at that final battle. Um, I went to sleep. I woke up and I looked on my phone, and people were sending me messages saying, "Yo, you left. What happened? What happened?" Because the puppeting notification didn't go through. It just said I left the faction. So then people were thinking I got hacked or something. I was like, I'm not hacked, you goblin. I'm here. I'm alive. What's going on? And then people go in game and they see that Farmer is the Basilius. So we put two and two together and figured out I was puppeted.
Who was Farmer?
Um, Farmer was originally when Major, he was there was a guy named Major. He's currently in Antioch. He was
Yeah,
the
Major Gager.
2IC under psych. Yes, him. He was in Paphos before, um, formerly Imperial Companions. I believe. Then Farmer was an MR under Major, and when Farmer was coming back, I can't remember if I reached out to him or if he just came back on his own, but um, we were struggling to find leadership for Paphos, so I'm pretty sure I made him an HR there. Then he decided to take up the mantle as full division leader. He seemed like a good guy. He seemed pretty chill. You know, he went to the gym. He had school and work, I believe. So he had a pretty full plate. So that led to him over time. He got pretty inactive from div leading. And I liked the guy. I'd talked to him a few times. We've chilled in VC quite a bit. So then I told him like, hey, I understand you got real life stuff going on. You're doing good work. You still do good work, and I'm not going to forget what you did. So we found a new guy for division leader. You're going to still be div and main faction HR, so you can still come around. You can still help out. And so he says, all right, and hadn't talked to him for a while. At this time, we had another guy, an ex-hospitaler div leader, Zach Hero. He came over, and he's been leading Paphos. So after that, months go by. When I got puppeted and the whole war happened, yeah, Cyprus was on a decent bit of inactivity. I just, I was running out of gas to do stuff to, just keep it running. I've just been kind of holding on as long as I can, trying to keep things together. Me and Maze were finishing up a new ranking structure that we haven't been able to finish. I2IC Maze, very good guy. Paper boy, he's a very good guy. Um, and I was writing up a Cypriot constitution that I had planned, outlining our values, our government structure, our beliefs, all that. And then the puppeting happened. So, right as I was starting to rise out of that inactivity little rut, I got kicked out.
You mentioned waking up, looking at your phone, kind of seeing what had happened. That sounds vaguely similar to me. I was actually I had my account breached and my assassin faction stolen several times back when I was the faction leader, and it was devastating. Um, and it's for me, it was one of the most gut wrenching, hard, sad feelings. It was devastating. What was the feeling for you?
I kind of just like, hmm, how can I describe it? It's it's kind of like in movies and shows, when somebody gets flashbanged, they're just kind of hovering there and their ears are ringing, kind of just sitting there, kind of stunned. It was just kind of like a stun, but I wasn't like heartbroken. I was just in that kind of like I was like coasting along almost like you're driving a car and then the engine just cuts out. You're going, but it's just, you know,
How do you feel now? It's been what, 2 weeks, 10 days, something like that. How do you feel now? You've obviously joined Onyx, it seems, or I've seen a screenshot of you being in the two. What's your thought process now?
well, I mean, originally when I got puppeted, I had heard that there was talks between the anti-feds and the feds about the whole puppeting, discussing like, if it's right or whatnot. Um, and I mean, at the beginning, I was very hopeful that I could be at very least some kind of almost martyr to make the game a better place where both sides can kind of shake hands and agree on what's right and what's wrong, so everybody can play the game and have a good time. Because that's just been bottom line what I've always wanted for Cyprus. Ever since I got leader, I wanted my home to stay alive. I wanted my faction to be a good faction, and I wanted to provide the best time and experience I can for everybody that's in it, and even people who aren't. I've, that's what I've preached the entire time. I'll talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, even people who are the enemy in whatever eyes. If it's a Seljuk, if it's an Antiochian, if it's an assassin, I don't care. I'll talk to anybody. I'll try to explain my views, explain why I did what I did, explain whatever, you know, preconceived notion they have, why I'm such an awful person, why I'm the worst leader ever. I'll talk to them. I don't care. Even people who are rude to me, I'll still listen to them. Um, yeah. Where are we? I got a little sidetracked from what was the
No, it's
main
okay.
question.
I'll sort of segue, follow up. Um, Question is about where your headspace is now. What I'd
All
like
right,
to know is you were leader of Cyprus for I think around a year
10
and
months. Almost
10,
made it to the year.
10 months. Um, that was a very, I think your leadership was full of assization, struggle, success. It was a bit of a roller coaster as I was paying attention. Now that you've been
I
puppeted after all that time, everything you've been through, do you plan to take Cyprus back? Do you plan to reclaim in Nicosia?
Well, I've talked to Psychic about this, and I mean, the offer he gave me seems to still be standing, which is I would return as the Prince of Cyprus, the 2IC, and I would command Kyrenia. And right now, I mean, I'm still up to take that deal. I mean, Cyprus is my only faction. It's the only faction I've ever been in. It's the only faction I really know. It's where I've learned everything, where I've met everybody from. Um, and I don't want to leave it. I like all the other, Crusader factions. Teutons are cool. Their trainings are very neat. KOJ has some nice uniforms, but I mean, Cyprus is just my home.
So, Psychic obviously was not the person that was chosen to replace the puppeting. Are you somehow he's now the leader again? Is that what you're saying? And trying to strike a
The
deal with him?
the puppeting was Farmer is just put there as the guy to get me out, and then Farmer hands it off to Psychic. That was the whole puppeting arrangement that was set up.
Did you feel betrayed by Psychic when he
No,
agreed to
not
this
really.
arrangement?
Not really, honestly. I mean, people would probably think I do, but I mean, I know there's a separation between my Cypriots and Psychic Cypriots. Both are very different. We both have very different mentalities, both ways of doing things, beliefs. Um, and I wanted to make a world where both of our sides can coexist, where the old Cypriots can have their home, and my new Cypriots that I cultivated can also have their home, where we can both live together and ultimately just make Cyprus a better place. That is all I want.
Did Saddam succeed in removing Cyprus from the Federation with Psychic being
Uh,
in charge?
I believe we are. Well, I don't know fully yet, but I'm pretty sure Cyprus is going in the way of like still being somewhat associated with them, but not being their allies. So more like I guess you could say positive neutrality. It seems like we want to go in our own way, our own creation, our own thing.
Seems like Saddam's achieved his goals. When I interviewed him, his goal was to annihilate the Federation and move Cyprus from it in an act of weakening it. It seems like that's exactly what he's done.
Mm, Well, props to him then, I guess. Congratulations. It's not going to stop me from doing what I love to do and helping who I want to help. I'm going to make Cyprus a good faction, and Saddam is not stopping that.
You don't feel betrayed by Psychic, and you've shared a really interesting history here that Saddam was actually your division leader, reported to you. This is an extra wrench in this. I did not know that. Makes it more interesting. Certainly, you must feel betrayed by him. One
Oh, very
thing
much so.
it's one thing to go lead another faction even have a war. It's another thing to do a puppeting, which has only happened. I think this might even just be the second time it's happened in the live server where there was a puppeting. Do you feel betrayed by him?
Very much so. I think Saddam, to his own credit, he is a good leader. He is a people person. He uses his words very well. He he definitely knows how to talk. That is his strength. That's why he has so many people. I mean, he also does do, from what I've seen, mass cross recruitment from anybody he can message. He's done it to not only Cyprus, he's done it to KOE, he's done it to KOJ, he's done it to Marcus's bloodline, and probably more people, probably more factions that he thinks are bad. I personally, I understand cross recruiting has to happen to some extent with how few pilgrims are in the game, and recruiting is not easy. So I get that to some extent. I don't love to do it when it happens. I try not to. I definitely don't try to actively go out and do it. Like I've had some Byzantines come and like one time specifically, there was a Byzantine. I won't give out names that had messaged one of my guys saying he wanted to join Cyprus, and then made a group chat with me, that guy, and the Byzantine. And so we're talking. I'm talking to him, trying to understand why he wants to leave Byzantines, why he wants to come over here, what happened. And he told me what, some stuff went down with some people in there. And so I tell him, like, hey, I think he was a high rank in biz. So I was like, hey, I'll give you MR here. And then you can, prove yourself, see how you like it here, and I'll do my best for you. And he says he'll let me know in a day. The next day, he adds Howling to the group chat and then kind of frames it like we're cross recruiting almost. Not really framing, but they believe it more like it is cross recruiting. In that situation, I don't view that as cross recruiting. That if you are reached out to by them asking to be taken in, that's not a cross recruitment. Cross recruiting is going out of your way to reach out to somebody else, telling them join me instead. So I talked with the guy, and it was actually he talked to me. He was a pretty chill guy, the Byzantine that brought in Howling. I don't have anything against him either. This guy, he was, you know, he was just telling me how cross recruiting is wrong, and he does see how he kind of, I guess you could say, entrapped me in that, and whatever. But we're getting off topic from Saddam. Um, yeah, Saddam he's a people person. He knows how to use his words, but he's definitely not a good guy anymore. When I knew him, when he was my div lead, he was a good guy. He's a good guy to his allies, but he's really not a good guy to anyone he deems as not his allies. And I would also like to say this now that the main reason for me being puppeted as well is because of Marcus trying to get people together to rebel Saddam. But Saddam will not tell you about the part where he DM'd my 2IC Maze, telling him he would be so much better if he led Cyprus. Basically, trying to get my 2IC to throw me overboard. So, I mean, that's kind
Obviously,
of
a lot of
crazy if you
drama
ask me.
and things going back and forth on both sides here. Since the happening, there's been an outcry of rage and dismay, not just from Federation, but also just around globally. People upset at Saddam for the puppeting. Have you heard about this? What's your knowledge of this? And do you think puppeting is dishonorable?
Puppeting shouldn't even be in the game. It's completely can ruin entire communities. It can destroy factions. It's not something that a foreign faction should have an influence over. Throwing a leader out is just not, it should not be an option. Wars should end by making peace valuable or war costly, not by just kicking the guy you don't like out. That is not how any war should be fought. The
If you
response
feel
of
this way, why not retake Cyprus? Why not talk to your allies, Tarask and the Federation, retake Cyprus, puppet Psychic, and put your name back on the throne as rightful emperor? This is an option. This is a game mechanic. Why not do it?
Because, like I said, I don't want a divided Cyprus, and I know if I kick Psychic out, then all of his old Cypriots will not have a home.
But why does
So
that why does
I
that matter? You by your admission were wrongfully puppeted. Psychic was a part of this conspiracy, whether or not he's willing to admit it. He took over your throne spot. If I were you, I'd be angriest at all at Psychic for contributing to this. It's one thing for a foreign adversary to puppet you. It's another thing for somebody internally who stepped down as leader or was removed from leader. I don't know how Psychic made his end, but you've been the Cypriot emperor for 10 months. Why not retake your throne, march to Nicosia, and who cares about the old Cypriot order when this happened to you wrongfully? I mean, you really want to accept second in command as some sort of consolation prize when you have a great Federation right now? They're pushing back in the war against SCA. Just had a big win yesterday. They're definitely powerful enough to annex Cyprus, in my opinion, vassalize Cyprus if they wanted to. Why not take this option?
because I would rather take a personal blow to my, I guess, position or my standing in return for my faction being more powerful. Having more people that, you know, like yes, I was wrongfully removed from my leadership, but the old Cypriots that were there before me, they're still Cypriots to me. They still matter to me. And, I would much rather if I'm in a slightly worse position, but 20 other guys can go back to the faction that they consider their home faction and have a good time. That's worth it to me. And if I did say, oh well, now I'm gonna just go and we're gonna remove Psychic, we're gonna puppet him and kick all the old guys out. Well, by the time that happens, the only way for the crusading force to get to Cyprus would be going through either a seaport to the Ayub, like a seaport to the Ayyubids. So either way, you'd have to fight through Ayyubids, or you could go through a seaport up to northern, and I think you'd have to fight through the Byzantines, but that would then bring in the whole Northern Coalition. That would form a giant world war. And last World War we had, the servers, they couldn't even handle it. Now the server limits are lower.
Well, there is
And
the hospitaller angle you consider where they could come in through northern. They have holdings that they could easily access through Messina and Sicily, and they could march south to Nicosia. It's not that far. You would have to go through some Byzantine territory, I suppose.
yes, and the way the Northern Triumvirate works is any attack on any of them, they'll all get involved. So it would have to then be the Crusading Force is KOE, KOJ, Teutons, Templars, and I guess maybe Hosp and Sicily. They're basically one. So you got five factions fighting at minimum Ayyubids, Seljuks, Antioch, um, Ayyubids, Seljuks, Antioch, Assassins, Byzantines, and I don't know if anybody else would decide to get involved. So it would be about a 5v5 war. Um, I just I don't I don't want that, and it probably wouldn't even be fun to be a part of, really, considering. So the player limit on the servers right now, and last time I checked, is 80. 80 people is the max you can have in a region. Now, 5v5 definitely will pull more than 80 people. So you're going to have like 20 dudes in both sides that just can't get in the game. You're going to have the remaining 80 players playing in a laggy Singaporean server because Janiel joined first and started a Singapore server. Um, and then you're just going to have giant mosh pits of a bunch of people fighting, and It would just be a complete another mess. That that's not, that's not a war. I much do prefer a 1v1. I think those 1v1s and 2v2s, those are fun. If the servers could handle it, sure, have bigger wars, but the servers right now just aren't really built for it.
Well, it sounds like you're content with letting Psychic take over, and seems like you have an offer. The reason for my pushback is it seems not to make sense to me when so many people are outraged about it that they wouldn't facilitate some reconciliation. But I'm outdated on that. It seems like you guys have an arrangement yourself. Where does Cyprus go after this? With the leading leader, obviously Psychic was a very successful leader. Cyprus was very successful under his reign. We know that he can be competent. If he's offering you Prince, um, again, I think it's a little suspicious how willing he was to work with Saddam and facilitate this. But um, he's offering you Prince. I guess taking that makes sense. When is this going to happen, and where are you guys going to take Cyprus now?
Well, for me, with our next goals, I mean, when I was leading, I was basically just trying to keep the faction in a relative state of being alive, just to hold out until the region of Cyprus got added. When we got our funny island, then that would be a great addition. We'd be able to, have a lot of fun there, do a lot of things there, a bunch of new places to explore, and that would get a lot of interest in the faction, I think. So I was trying to just kind of hold out until then, because I mean, no matter how you slice it, when I got put into leadership, I was inexperienced. I was thrown in because Psychic had to step away, and you were right. He did step away, I believe, for real life work and stuff. So he was stepping away. The two IC at the time didn't want to lead. None of the three ICs at the time wanted to lead. At the time, I was leading Kyrenia as a division leader, and I believe I was HR2 in the main faction. So because I didn't want my faction, my home to die, I I said I'll lead. I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'll take over. That happened. I got my coronation, which was recorded, which was very cool to see everybody show up to it. It was a very cool event. Then uh, I had decided to switch from the faction's previous standing to being, you know, Federation aligned. And that was the moment where, from then on, to me, everybody kind of just treated me like I was, well, everybody, like every foreign faction then that was not Federation, kind of treated me like I was like the worst. Like I had, personally came in, crapped on their carpet and then said clean it up and left. I mean, I just, it was a change in leadership and then a change in allies. I didn't, think that was super massive. I didn't think that was the most controversial thing I could have ever done. I just changed who we aligned with. Um, that was the big part that stressed me out as leader was I was able to tune it out to an extent, but the, pretty consistent negative messages I would get in game and just out of game, on Discord, the negative things I would see about people talking about me, that it did get to me sometimes. That was the roughest part I would say would be the foreign response to stuff I did, and it was hard to tune that out sometimes.
Definitely, it seems like being a member of the Federation can warrant a lot of anger. There's definitely, I think the sense I really see the community as a whole, and obviously it's difficult because much of the community are Federation. I see the sense of the community as a whole, if it was to go one direction, is the Federation plays some sort of villain role, whether or not that's actually true. Um, and these anti-Federation factions are formed to counter the Federation. Not That's what they claim. They're not formed out of their own. Um, desire to ally. It's a desire to defeat the Federation. So they kind of play this like evil empire. They play this evil empire role. Joining them obviously was going to be controversial, even though at the time less controversial than now. Probably everything that's happened in the last year. Did you know that going in that you might be stepping into more of a villain role as a Federation member?
I really don't view the Federation as villains at all.
Well, of course you don't
Even
because you've been a member of the Federation. What I'm trying to say is
yes,
there's a general sense, especially among non-Federation, that the Federation is the villain. Big conglomerate of factions, uh, very happy to fight, very willing to fight, um, very aggressive at times, and has been the subject of many wars to try to defeat them. That's definitely so. You knew that going in. Again, it's a year removed, so maybe not as much. But did you anticipate the reaction?
I did know that Cyprus was pretty. I mean, not pretty, but I knew they were against the Federation. I mean, that. I mean, hey, there's a gift that I got made when we were fighting the Teutonics. I was actively fighting Teutonics before as the leader of Kyrenia, and it was when they were roll spamming, and I took a clip of it and I put the white tumbleweed in text under it because they just roll spammed away. That was the Teutonic technique there. And I didn't like them because of that, because they would spectate wars, which I thought was the dumbest thing ever. Just sitting there on the side or near an objective, just sitting there taking up space and sometimes getting hit. And then there's some problem like, oh no, you're intervening or something like whatever. Just at that, I didn't like that. I don't like when any faction spectates another one's war. Just like I don't know, join their Discord and watch it or something. But so I knew that Cyprus had a negative relationship with the Federation, and they had old history where Cyprus would get bored, war KOJ, take Jerusalem, and then just give it back. That was the old Cypriot way, you know. From joining them, from going from that, from
Yeah,
fighting them and actively not liking them, from everything I've seen, everyone I've met in there, everyone I've talked to, and even people out of there in the anti-feds that I've talked to. I talked to Martina like a couple nights ago, and I talked to C3 in a VC a couple nights ago. Everybody is chill. Everybody is chill. It does not matter. The second you get in a VC, you can be mad for like 30 seconds, and then you're just buddies. There's really not that much like animosity behind it. And I really think both sides could very easily come to an agreement because both sides are only around because both sides exist. No one side is willing to depart while the other one is not.
well, that's kind of
So there's
interesting.
just
You
a big
mentioned you mentioned
bunch of
that because the sense I got from Valor and Gauze, Leo, was that, and from other anti-Federation leaders, uh, was that peace was going to be impossible. And I've even had conversations with leaders where they say, "Hey, I tried to negotiate peace, and the Federation just refused." And I even gave conciliations. I even ceded territory, and then the Federation just breaks the truce or takes it back because they think that they can conquer us, and so I have to form a super coalition to just survive, or else I'm going to get conquered by the feds. And I've tried to schedule interviews with Tarask to answer questions about the Federation. He's refused. He's refused to come on interview. He's refused to speak to me and answer questions about it. So, my point of view, I understand that I would think that it would be easy to at least negotiate a peace, but certainly coalition members, SCA members, triumvirate members don't view the Federation that way. They don't view them as a party that's willing to negotiate. They seem to their understanding of the Federation is the Federation only understands violence. We must defeat them. We must disband them, through violent actions such as the puppeting of Cyprus you were involved with. such as the huge war that happened last summer, and that's the only way to get the Federation to disband and understand. That's what they think.
Well, I can tell you right now from we had a talk in a peace talk server about the puppeting. It was pretty much all of the Fed and anti-Fed leaders were there. The only two people that I can remember in that talk that were arguing that either the puppeting was fair or basically that I deserved it was Chapika and Belitis. Those were the only two. Ali was kind of like 50-50, but he kind of understood it is kind of wrong. So I mean, between the Northern Levant and between the Federation, we both agree puppeting bad. So
Yeah,
we can agree on stuff. We can talk. So it is possible. And here's the funny thing: C3 originally wanted to make a kind of a Geneva Convention where both sides can agree on some like rules and how to keep things a bit more fun. And there was a talk about disbanding the Federation and that NT would disband if Federation disbanded. Now, the funny thing is, the day before that, there was active talks in the Federation Council about how would the Federation disband. There are people in the Federation that are willing for some form of mutual, you know, disbanding of both parties.
yeah,
I will say there's definitely some people in the Federation that don't want to,
yeah,
but the Federation really works on like they try to find the fairest thing they can do in terms of I remember when HRE left the Federation, it was due to them having beef with I'm pretty sure it was KOJ over Southward. KOJ believed they had a rightful claim
yeah,
on Southward, and HRE thought they had a rightful claim. So the plan was to have them both fight it out in a real 1v1 war while there was an active Federation conflict going on. That was just plain a bad move on the Federation side, which led to them going against us and all that happening. So the Federation does try with its members to be as fair and just as it can. And that's really what I liked about it. They have tons of, rules. They have a very in-depth council system in terms of writing out this. There's like a paragraphs on paragraphs of these terms and what this means and different like clauses and stuff. It's very official feeling being in there and doing council stuff and looking at documents that are made for it. I view Federation as the front of justice, fairness, and the rights, like fighting for what's right. Um,
well, obviously some
and sure,
SCA and other people would disagree.
of course they would,
Yeah,
and I can understand that.
I don't have a stance in this. I've heard both sides. I've been in factions on both sides on different accounts. Um, I actually people called me pro Federation back during the summer because I thought the Teutonics rally against the French was incredible and inspiring to see, especially when they defeated I think 8 factions at once when they were outnumbered 8-1. So I don't have a problem with the Federation or the anti-Feds, but it is interesting hearing your perspective. So we were kind of talking about Federation, just typical uh, drama that goes around in Lionhearts nowadays as far as pro or anti-Fed. Uh, I like to pivot the discussion, if you don't mind. The point I wanted to bring it in, and this has been touched on, is the state of development in Lionhearts. You've mentioned server sizes and sort of server issues. How do you view the current state of Lionhearts as a product, just as a consumer, both as a former leader and as a player?
All right, and I'm not gonna pull any punches just because you're Mithandir. All right, I'm gonna let you know how I
Well,
feel.
you never have, so I expect you to.
All right. I think that given, first, let's start off with the paid access. Given how the game has frequent bugs that pop up, the game is unfinished, and in terms of content that players can deal with and play with, there is not that much. I feel like 100 flat is a decent fair price for the game. I know you've been doing the like slowly dropping it, trying to find a good spot with the analytics. I don't think you really need to look at that much. I also think that to give people an opportunity to give the game a shot, um, maybe on weekends, maybe every other weekend, the game is opened so anybody can play it for the weekend and then reclosed back during the weekdays, which allows people to filter in. A few people join in on that weekend. They get in with their faction recruiter. The recruiter lets them know, hey, on the weekdays, the game's coming back on price, and they will that incentivizes the people to come back by the faction telling them, hey, here's all this cool stuff. Look at all these pictures. Look at these rallies. Here's some battles. Then they're more inclined to like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of this. I'm gonna come and actually buy access. And having 100, that's a pretty decent price. You make some money. The player isn't losing that much, and they get a
Hmm.
taste for what the game can be. That's
So the,
part
the
one.
the issue with the first point as far as reducing the price is it's trending in that direction. I won't say any more about that. I've talked about that extensively in past interviews. Um, Second point with regards to free weekends, I've heard this idea proposed a lot. The problem with it is that this would certainly destroy our analytics, and then we would lose all the progress of Roblox promotions from it. It's something I would consider in the future, but it would definitely not be smart to do that now. Um, because the analytics would drop and then Roblox would stop promoting us. And we've been slowly building up with their internal promotions over time. However, we haven't advertised yet, and we're not really at a point where we feel like it's urgent to at this juncture until we fix some major things and add content. But it wouldn't be a good idea. But
Okay, I
please
can kind of
continue.
agree to. Yeah, I can kind of agree to that. I think before I guess that free weekend idea becomes a reality, I definitely think that Lionhearts needs more of these MMO features. Like it's the game is pretty much branded as an MMO faction fighting game, yet the MMO features are very lacking. The resource collecting is good, but I mean that's just one part of what MMOs are usually made up of. You know, there's a ton of different features that could be added to, give some more personality to things that people can do, rather than just, oh, I've been mining for 14 weeks and I can finally make a Wootz greatsword. I'm happy now. That's not going to keep people around unless they're, got dropped on their head like me for some reason, who has like 600 general levels almost. That's not what the average Roblox player is going to come back for. Having, their own things that they can create and that feel special to them is what will keep people coming back. For example, when I first joined, I had this idea that, oh, maybe you can make your weapons more personalized, maybe change out some parts to make them gold if you mine enough gold, or you can, get some jewels somehow and make your weapon gilded and have some jewels on the hilt. Something to make the weapon yours, maybe even adding an engraving system on the blade, something to give it some liveliness, some personality to it. So people aren't just like copy paste soldiers everywhere. Um, so yeah, definitely more content for people to do, not just fighting. Fighting is one part of the game. There needs to be peacetime and peace incentives. Because right now, with how the game is structured, factions are only incentivized to war and never not war. Because if you are at war with a faction, you both are gaining activity, you both are having constant events and people playing the game. The war ends, they come to peace. Politically, sure, things are cool now, very nice. But now you have nothing to do. You can only prepare for the next war. So I think you really need to incentivize peace times, giving more action to do during those that can maybe you can tie it in with the peace times, doing actions that will benefit your next conflict, making your garrison stronger, getting your guards stronger, and anything that can be done during peace times to make wars more beneficial for the person declaring. That is what will result in really good wars and what will result in really good activity. Because if you get those people that are really into their faction, you're a KOE MR, you're working hard, you're mining every day, you're chopping wood, building stuff up for your faction, and then you actually get to use it and go to war with them. That is much more impactful than sitting around going to a training every 3 days and waiting for your leader to just decide he's going to war. You know?
What sort of peace incentives would you make besides other things to do? Because that's an incentive for a player, but a faction peace incentives I think are different. So what would you do for that?
Well, I've had a couple ideas on this. So if if for example, animals become a thing that you can hunt and, farming becomes a thing, you're generating food. Now, what I believe food should be used for is kind of like how there's faction honor. You use honor to declare wars, and if you don't have any, bad stuff happens. So when that happens, if you have food, you collect food for your faction to raise up morale. Armies need morale, otherwise they're not going to fight. So you have people, you'd have, if you have high morale, maybe your garrisons are stronger, maybe your guards are stronger. If you have low morale, it's going to be a lot easier to beat you. That would provide both kind of peace incentives, but also you don't want a conflict to drag on so long that, well, we have no morale, our garrisons are super easy to take. Now we're not in a good spot.
I guess I don't know if that's an incentive for peace. Like preparing for war, that's what parabellum means. That's not really an
Yeah.
incentive for peace. Like building up your garrison so it's strong for the next fight, that's more war oriented. Like,
Yeah.
what could a
I can
faction do? What about? I mean, maybe trading between factions. Like what? Like as instead of having to, you could be diplomatic through trades instead of having to declare war over disputes.
You could, but that wouldn't really provide much incentive for peace because okay, yay, we traded and now we're friends. Like, or now we're temporarily buddies. So, what does that really give you? Your faction got some resources. What are those resources going to go to? The next war. So, that isn't really an incentive to peace. I will, oh, excuse me, oh, I had a burp. I will say it is a little difficult, you could say, to try and make some peace incentives. Um, what I could think of, why would a faction want to not be at war? What could you do outside of that would be better for your faction? I think the only other thing I can really think of would be having a mix of an AI or player peasantry system where you've got to keep your people like, your people happy, your people fed, not your military, your civilians, keep them going. And if you don't have that, then your main faction also falls apart. It would have to be a large system, definitely. I won't sit here and pretend I have all the answers because I don't, but I
Of
do
course
think we
not.
should try and explore some possible ways to make peace profitable or make war costly, but not like break the bank costly so that no one ever declares. It's a very fine balance you have to find
Yeah,
where you can't punish them too hard and you can't reward them too hard either.
sure. Yeah. Um, that makes sense. Do you have fun playing Lionhearts? Is it something that you enjoy, or is it an obligation?
There are parts I enjoy. There are parts where I feel like I'm working a 9 to 5 and I want to go and, just crawl in a corner and cry sometimes. It's a very wide spectrum of how I feel playing Lionhearts. Um, at some points, it does feel like when I was leader and I was feeling like I was really stressed or something, I did feel that obligation to keep playing and keep going because I had my faction that I cared about. And so I would push through and just deal with it because, well, these are my people. These are my friends, not just my people, but my friends. I still talk to a bunch of bunch of Cypriots. I very much see a ton of people I've met in this game are good friends of mine now. I've been here so long. Even people that aren't in my faction, people who are in enemy factions. Back to what I was saying earlier, you can pick anybody almost at random from any faction, play another game with that person, you will become buddies because we're all the same pretty much. We all fight for our faction, and if you remove the Lego faction nonsense, everybody can literally just be friends. It's It's happened to me so many times.
That's a pretty optimistic note. Anything else you'd like to say to your supporters, your followers? Got a lot of support in the chat. Anything you'd like to say to everybody that looks up to you or you're friends with?
All right. I will say, I think if everybody can agree just to, swallow their pride a little bit, this genre can become a true powerhouse. If instead of worrying about, you know, just, oh, your faction, oh, your alliance, oh, these people, if you swallow your pride a little bit, you can make this genre great for everybody who comes into it, where everybody will have a good time. Every faction can have their own good things. The whole game as a whole can very much improve if everybody just takes a moment, steps back, and realizes everybody's people. We're all playing a game. We all want to have fun. So work together. I'm positive, I am positive that the whole anti-Fed and Fed beef can 100% be solved, where everybody can go their separate ways and still have fun with who they want to have fun with, and the genre improves as a whole. That can definitely happen.
Any shout outs or anybody you'd like to say hello to before we end?
Yes, I would love to shout out my former 2IC who sadly retired from the genre not long ago, Maze. He's in the chat right now. Dutch YT. He's an amazing 2IC, an amazing newspaper man. He's also a great friend of mine, and he's a good guy. Also, GoPro, the old Cypriot Highcom, the last of the taxmen from the old era of Cyprus. He's here. He's very cool as well. We've got Lined Boss Yeet in chat as well. He was my Kyrenia division leader. He's been there for a while. He was in the faction before I was leader. He's been hanging out a long time. Props to him. And RPQA, he's currently under Psychic, the new Paphos leader. I hope you do it good. Run Paphos good. I've been wanting that division to succeed for a while. Tarask is probably old man sleeping in his chair right now. He plays in a lazy boy with a laptop on his lap. He is definitely sleeping back, making the snoring dad sound effect as we speak. Um, let's see. Anyone else I can think of? Luck is pretty cool too. Luck with his short sword spam.
Well, I think this is the part of the Oscars where I have to start playing the music to cut you off. Lettuce, thank you very much for joining me. And this has been a fantastic interview. Everybody give it up to Lettuce.
Everybody, this video better hit 500 views, otherwise I'm gonna war Zengits.
Okay, he's gonna war Zangits. That's a good note to end it on. Thank you very much, Lettuce. Guys, we are going to be going right into giveaways, but thank you all for watching. Stay tuned if you want those giveaways. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe below. If not, leave a dislike and tell us why this content could be improved in the comments below. We'll see you guys in the next one.